23.
Because there's something about Mary.
Follow me. Eat my flesh, flesh of my flesh. Come with me. Hail Mary.
In this 4th century fragment of a book written in the Coptic language, we have a new, previously unknown gospel. 8 lines on the front, 6 lines on the back. The most exciting line in the whole fragment, however, is the sentence, Jesus said to them, to his disciples that is, Jesus said to them, my wife.
Mary!
That some Christians, probably in the second half of the 2nd century, that's between about 150 and 200 AD, thought that Jesus had a wife.
Mary, Mary, I need your hugging.
The conclusion was that it was authentic and probably 4th century. And so what we can see is that it's about 100, 150 years after Jesus died before the question is raised, did Jesus have a wife or not?
There's something about Mary.
Mary Magdalene is the first one to whom the risen Christ appears, so she is of immense importance to Christianity. For that hour or two, Mary Magdalene was the only one who knew about the resurrection, and so Mary Magdalene was the church.
And then along comes Mary.
For all her central role at the time of the resurrection, Mary then disappears from the story of the early church.
One of the great mysteries of early Christianity is what happened to Mary Magdalene, because there she is on the pages of the Gospels in all the key moments at the end of his life, at the tomb and experiencing the resurrection, and then we don't hear any more about her.
Nothing's quite as pretty as Mary in the morning.
Mary Magdalene and Gnostic spirituality. I'm looking at 2 photographs right now. Photographs of mosaics on the floors of 2 different Hebrew Christian sanctuaries that were discovered in Israel at a 6th century monastery called Lady Mary, Monastery of Lady Mary in Bet Shehan, Israel. It's a mosaic on the floor of this monastic sanctuary that portrays Jesus and Mary Magdalene as a divine couple. A sun god next to a moon goddess surrounded by the 12 signs of the zodiac, standing for the 12 apostles.
Mary, did you know?
There's something about Mary.
Her name for Mother Goddess is Mary, which stems from the Aryan form, M-A-U-R, where M-A denotes mother and U-R, as we discussed in relation to Marduk taking the title Khan-Khan-er, means the one and only, i.e. the one and only mother.
The Camino de Santiago, the path to St. James. I began this pilgrimage through Spain to find answers, to seek enlightenment. 3 days ago I wandered off the trail and found a small isolated village. The people there were ecstatic to see me because no one spoke English there. No one except a girl who had a fever, a girl who had never spoken English before in her life. They wanted to know what she was saying. I wrote down what she said so I could translate it for them. She was describing a vision of Mary Magdalene. This is what she saw. Mary was the widow of Christ. After he ascended into heaven at Pentecost, leaving her alone, Mary left the early Christian movement in the hands of Peter. She embarked on a quest. She was joined by 3 goddesses, a maiden astrologer, a mother huntress, and a wise crone. Together they journeyed to the beginning of time, to Eden. What they found there This vision cannot be real. It cannot be from the divine. Because if it is, it changes everything.
Is in the Gospel of Philip, a Nag Hammadi library book found in Upper Egypt. Mary Magdalene is described as the companion of Christ. And that's from the Gospel of Philip, one of the Nag Hammadi books found in Egypt, one of the missing Gospels that were restored after they were discovered in 1945, sealed up in a clay storage jar like a time capsule for almost 2,000 years.
Now, because Isis returned to the mountain lands of her father Ninurta and restored womankind, she became associated with Mother Goddess herself as well as the originator of this species. Therefore, we have the title Ava, from where the form Eve is built, and Mary, Ava Mary, or Ava Maria, meaning something to the effect of the original one and only mother. In other words, Isis became known in history as Mary Magdalene, the feminine side of the Grail bloodline, which is spoken about in Sir Lawrence Gardner's book and in other places. Gardner, in his own way, is describing, to some degree, what happened to those who were of Mary Magdalene's pure bloodline and the patriarchal side of the coin, the mix between Marduk and Isis, as well as the Marduk-Ereshkigal seed line.
In several texts of antiquity, the Orthodox figure by the name of Peter, the Apostle Peter, he voices opposition to the idea that women can be leaders in early Christianity equal to males. Peter hassles Mary Magdalene across the pages of several ancient texts. Mary even says in one place, "Peter hates our gender, and I'm afraid of him." And but basically in Pista Sophia, the Gnostic Gospel of Faith Wisdom, Jesus states something to the effect that your point of view will win out. You know, you have the truth on your side, Mary Magdalene, and you have the accurate interpretation of the teachings, and your point of view will prevail.
Choking on the ashes of a runaway.
Will you join us?
Jesus, as we know him, is associated with Enki but not Marduk, which would be more in line with what Gardner states if we compare with my own line of research. Hence, the error here lies in the confusion between bloodlines. As we saw earlier in this paper, there are actually 3 slightly different elite bloodlines created by Enki or Marduk, respectively, as the male contributors. The Fisher Kings became one of the terms for the Merovingian kings, who were the elite bloodline of the patriarchal regime. The bloodline Marduk and Enki decided to protect as their own main elite bloodline. It needed to be protected, therefore, what can be compared to as a police force or semi-military force was created. This force wore the Celestial Cross, which is the symbol of Ninurta, something that was never spoken of. The Ninurta bloodline survived through Isis descendants, also known as the Grail bloodline. This police force was, of course, the Knights Templar, and although they had different tasks to perform, the protection of the Holy Grail bloodline was their main duty. Although under false premises, the Templars protected the female line of Queen Isis, aka Mary Magdalene. Gardner mentions this as well in his Bloodline of the Holy Grail. This was especially apparent during the Age of Chivalry, which embraced a respect for womanhood, as exemplified by the Knights Templars whose constitutional oath supported a veneration of the Grail Mother, Queen Mary Magdalene. In order to understand how Marduk and Isis/Inanna are related, we need to start looking at a goddess called Sarpanit. Wikipedia says, in Babylonian mythology, Sarpanit, alternately Sarpanitu, Zarpanit, Zarpandit, Zerpanidum, Zerbanitu, or Zerbanit, is a mother goddess and the consort of the chief god, Marduk. Her name means the Shining One, and she is sometimes associated with the planet Venus. By a play on words her name was interpreted as Zer-Banatu, or creatress of seed, and is thereby associated with the goddess Uru, who, according to Babylonian myth, created mankind. Her marriage with Marduk was celebrated annually at New Year in Babylon. She was worshipped via the rising moon, and was often depicted as being pregnant. She is also known as Uru. She may be the same as Gamsu, Ishtar, and Beltis. Sarpanit was Marduk's consort when he was the chief god, which was during the time of the Babylonian Empire, the same period we have covered in this paper. However, few people have even heard of the name Sarpanit, so who is she? According to the quote above, it says that Sarpanit may be the same as Ishtar, who is the same as Inanna and Isis. Furthermore, it also tells us that this goddess is sometimes related to Venus. So, which goddess in the Mesopotamian pantheon is associated with Venus? Isn't that Inanna? If we type in Inanna in Wikipedia, we get, plain and simple. Inanna was associated with the celestial planet Venus. As the readers can see, this deity is also, according to Babylonian myth, the creator of mankind. So there we have it. Inanna Isis was the goddess who really created mankind, together with Enki and Marduk, and not Ninhursag. In the above example, it becomes obvious that the goddess who was married to Marduk during the time of the Babylonian Empire was Sarpanit, which is another name for Inanna, Ishtar, Lilith, and Isis. Perhaps the reader now starts to see how the few can control the many. It is very cleverly done, and it's been done in almost all aspects of life.
The companion of the Savior is Mary Magdalene. He loved her more than all the disciples.
In 180 AD, Bishop Irenaeus of Lyon wanted to streamline Christianity and called for a single Bible. He published a list of books he thought of as heresy. The Gnostic Gospels of Thomas and Philip, books that emphasized individual enlightenment, were on that list.
And in the 4th and 5th century, Christianity becomes much more about control and controlling the masses than it becomes about enlightening them.
Mary Magdalene became central to both sides of this conflict. Both sides used her as their poster child. For Gnostic Christians, Mary becomes the first among disciples when she receives the kiss of knowledge. For the ancient Catholic Church, she was proof that Jesus offered salvation even to sinners and outcasts. Portraying Mary Magdalene as a sinful woman saved by Jesus was a stroke of theological genius. It defeated the Gnostics and female church leaders in one stroke of the pen.
A friend of mine told me one early morning, over at Mary's place.
Though they judge you, Mary, persecute you, you must forgive them.
That moment that will start the Mary magic, because the ritual day of Mary Magdalene is July 21st.
Gospel of Mary Magdalene, at one point during a vision, a soul says, "The soul answered, saying, You did not see me, nor did you know me. You mistook the garment I wore for my true self, and you did not recognize me." How easy it is to only see the surface, to in fact be wasting away whole lifetimes being a surface dweller, neither knowing one's self or seeing the true identity of others as souls. In truth, we are all particles of light dwelling within bodies. We are notes that make up a divine symphony. As similar versions of sayings found in Thomas, also found in the Gospel of Mary, we find that this idea of Mary Magdalene being the wife of the Guru, wife of Jesus, is not a new idea.
Which is the 777 coded. So it will start the Mary magic for those 3 days until 7:21 p.m. on the 23rd, which is series. So those 3 days are, I'm calling Mary magic. Mary magic.
Illuminati, the 7 days.
There's something about Mary.
I had this dream when I was 28 and in Russia with this girl in St. Petersburg Square. We were looking at St. Basile Cathedral with the golden domes, right? And she was taking pictures, and she went to turn and look at me, and then boom, all of a sudden something was wrong, and it was like a sense of panic, like a world sense of panic, right? Like something big was going on in the world. So we find this church. Then we step inside, and then boom, it's the church of my youth. Like, so we're in the church, and I'm standing up, and I got on an all white suit, and I look back, and well, I remember kind of before the white suit, like we walk in, and I kind of look back, and there's this girl in a black dress, black hair, and I remember like, wow, she's the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. She's sitting down, my mom's next to her, my dad's next to her, the entire church is filled, but it's like everyone in the church was literally like in a daze, like they were zombies, like they were just. I look down at her, and she lifts her hand up, and she's got on a wedding ring with 3 diamonds in it. And it's like I reached down to grab her, and I almost touched her, and then something over my left shoulder made me turn, and I looked, and there looked like a little angel with blonde hair. She was dressed in white. If I remember correctly, she said, "That's her." Then the dream ended. Now, the way that I've interpreted the dream, right? And the girl in the dream was Mary Magdalene.
He greeted them all, saying, "Peace be with you. Acquire my peace within yourselves. Be on your guard so that no one deceives you by saying, 'Look over here,' or 'Look over there.' For the seed of true humanity exists within you. The Son of Man is within you. Follow after it. Those who search for it will find it." Mary Magdalene was a visionary or mystical soul who had visions of the resurrected Christ, seeing the radiant form of her master. And she described visions of several different heavenly realms.
The world will only change as we change.
Mary! Now pay attention, best man, please, Father. I'm a ghost, killing fields, Hail Mary. Mary, Mary, I need your hug.